Thanks for joining us. Today's Elko Live here on KELK is a prelude to the Elko County Commission meeting. The regular session gets underway at 1:30 this afternoon. And in studio, we are pleased to feature Elko County Commissioner Brian Gale, who has made the trip out, and happy to hear that calving season's going well out there in the valley, Brian. It's wonderful to see you.
Yes, it is. I'm happy to be here, Lori.
Thank you. Commissioners, again, not a super heavy agenda today, so I thought we might be able to pick up on some of the other more recent topics commissioners have been discussing, but you brought with you, obviously there are some things that you'd like to talk about today. I know that there's going to be a presentation from Nevada Works, and that's an organization. It's a non-action item, I guess, Brian, and they're going to talk about how they support people looking for employers and future or people who are looking for jobs, and then employers who are looking for people to hire.
Yes, and I took a little sneak peek of their presentation, and it looks like they have some facilities to help people get jobs, to help people find employees, and to do a little bit of training, stuff like that. It looks like a pretty good program.
Yeah, it's been up and running for a while, and I think it does support what Great Basin College does. They're doing they just expanded their truck driving program, Brian, which could fit in nicely with one of Elko County's goals, it looks like, to enhance maybe some of our rail properties and support industry in places like Wells that you represent.
Yeah, that'll be really nice. That's good. I'm glad to see that GBC can grow and expand and change with the times.
And then under another item, the clerk's office is going to make a presentation. They've got yet one more amendment that they are asking for approval for the Liberty vote systems. We have some new machines that Becky's going to be demonstrating for us.
Yeah, right. So Liberty is just a new name for the same old company, Dominion, I guess. I look forward to seeing the presentation.
Yeah, that'll happen today. There is an amendment that would update, I believe, adding additional image cast precinct tabulators. And then next Friday, I think it is, Brian, Becky's doing a demonstration from like 9 to 3, so all day in the commissioner's meeting room. I believe people can stop by and get familiar with the machines, and that way if they have any questions, she can show them how they work.
Yeah, that's good. And that's what Becky does, and she does a fine job with it. Of course, I have quite a few constituents who can't understand why we have to do this all on computer. 30 years ago, we didn't do it on computer, and we knew the very next morning who won. So, I don't know. It seems, and I side with them, it seems like the whole computerization process looks like an opportunity to get fishy.
And there are a lot of votes to be counted, certainly, and something that will deserve a lot of conversation, which I'm sure Becky will give you an opportunity and anyone who has questions to ask them about that new technology. And then I know that there's an item here to talk about legislation, some potential bill draft request, and it's on the agenda. Anyone who wants to look up the ideas that commissioners are generating. Are any of these ones that you want to talk about in particular, Brian?
I haven't worked up any of the bills that I want to see get pushed through, and the county gets, as I understand it, the county gets one BDR, they're called, to present to put into the legislature. So it'll be a while before we really pick what we want to do, but now is a good time to start thinking about it. So that's what these that you have listed are.
Yeah, there are about 9 items under these, and they're just listed as ideas, so a lot of conversation. One has to do with limitation on tax caps and including charter schools to be eligible for a portion of the tax increment. It looked like from the minutes of a previous meeting, Brian, that your fellow Commissioner John Carr was looking to get a little creative and maybe shift some of the Elko TV district taxing increment over to, say, charter schools or to schools to help with their financial woes.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, the way that I don't know precisely what the TV district does. I haven't had TV since, my whole life I haven't really had TV. But I can see pretty much whatever I want on the internet now. I guess, what do you call that, unplugged or something like that. I'm not sure we'll always have a TV district.
So whether or not some funding is shifted, that's not talked about in the proposed BDR concept, but it is in form, I guess, in AB 519 that was approved in 2021. So what problem or challenge is the county trying to solve? The notes say to close the loop on exceeding the tax cap in the future, to allow for flexibility to provide capital funding to all state-approved K through 12 educational institutions. So that's one consideration, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Money is always a pretty good talking subject particularly when it comes to school.
I do know that you are interested in water, and there is a BDR consideration to change the requirements for full-time water operator on small water systems. This doesn't have to do with water law or water rights, but specifically the duties of some of the water systems, the people who administer them in really tiny areas, places like Jarbidge.
Yeah. And as far as water goes, I haven't looked at that much yet either, but there are some other water issues that I am very interested in.
So that would impact Jarbidge specifically on that one. And we can talk about your water issue too. We have a note on that. Another BDR would reduce the requirement for a municipal court judge in each of the incorporated cities. I guess that could impact your district because Wells is an incorporated city, correct?
Yes, that's right. And the justices of the justi of the peace.
In multiples, yes.
Yeah, they don't have to be sitting. They don't have to be on the Nevada State Bar, anything like that. And I'm not sure exactly what that reduction in requirements would be. It seems logical to me if a person is an elected official, they ultimately respond only to the electorate.
So that will be, again, discussed during today's meeting. This is on today's agenda under legislation. So whether or not folks want to pull out these individually, again, they're just ideas, kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. For example, there's one that's listed that says, all it says is 28-day room tax, and it says, I don't remember, Delmo, help me out.
I guess.
Did you see that?
I guess, I did see that. I look forward to Delmo elaborating on that.
Yes. So it just shows that everybody gets to put in their ideas, I think, if they have some. There is one that's interesting, asking the question, is it still an issue that the Ag District and Fair Board are two separate boards and have distinct responsibilities? And so that's being asked as a question. Of course, these are bill draft requests that would likely go to lawmaker Burt Gurr, I guess perhaps to John Ellison, if commissioners decide to do that. And then there is a sunset date for open space plans for counties whose population is less than 700,000. Is that something you know much about? I'm not really sure about it either.
Don't. Like I said, this is very early in the process. And we only get one BDR to submit to the legislature. So, we're going to, when we finally decide on one, it'll be one that we all understand and that we all feel pretty passionately about.
Yeah, it's so interesting that a county would only get one BDR. I mean, but obviously if you work with your legislator, they don't get a lot of individual BDRs either. And I know that Burt has already committed one of his requests to the elderberry becoming the official state fruit. And so hopefully there's room for some of these other issues. The one about the open space plans, it says it leaves the option open for counties who'd like to adopt an open space plan. Now, it is of interest to Elko County. The description says it could be a mechanism to purchase private land to allow for public use and would allow counties and cities to maintain parks. So at least there's one agenda item reflecting that with Lamoille, the Lions Club camp, Brian.
Right.
And then the other one, it begs the question how this private ski area, the conditional use permit was approved by the Planning Commission. It's likely to come before county commissioners, right? I'm pretty sure it's going to be appealed by those opposed.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that day.
Are you really? You're being facetious?
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, no.
No, I'm... to me, it's a issue of private ownership of private land and what you can do with your private stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people who oppose it, and what you call... There's a term for this type of people who have this type of mentality, and it's NIMBY, not in my backyard. That's fantastic, but I can't tell my neighbor what he can do or what he can't do with his land or his cows or anything. So if you want to control the mountain, I guess you just have to own the mountain. I mean, how it's set up right now, there's very little in the state of Nevada. There's already very little private land, very little private land. And so for the private land we do have, I would be very hesitant to put restrictions on the use thereof. I mean, as long as it's peaceful and legal and not, extremely obnoxious, which in my mind, a ski resort would be a magnificent addition. And I don't know if I could justify putting up a ski resort, but if it's his money, then good for him.
It was pointed out during that public planning commission meeting too, Brian, that there is about 92 to 96,000 acres of protected wilderness in that same area that will never be developed. So to your point.
That's right.
And I do believe that there were historic efforts to establish ski areas in places like Lamoille Canyon, and at one time closer out by you at Tent Mountain. Were you familiar with that one?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I think the Gerber family historically may have had some involvement in Tent Mountain.
Oh, no.
As a resort type area. So
yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you've heard Brian Gale's opinion on that. If the CUP is appealed to the county commission, there's at least one person who is in favor of upholding the conditional use permit for the private ski area.
Yeah, I don't want to be secret about it. I mean, I was elected to this position, and I want everybody to know exactly who they elected. For me, the rubies are an absolutely beautiful resource. I could not survive without the rubies. Our cattle depend on the water that we get off the rubies and put on and build hay, and the grazing we get off the rubies. If it weren't for the rubies, we would not be here. I absolutely love them. I spend a lot of time up in them, pushing my girls around. And
he's speaking of the cattle.
The cows.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anyone who appreciates them more than I. But what I do value even higher than the entire rubies is liberty, the rule of law. And it's far more important to me that our law be established, well recognized, and sanctified. That we absolutely must have liberty. We must have the rule of law, even more than we must have the rubies. I mean, because you can live in a junkyard with liberty. You could make it eventually the Garden of Eden. But if you live in the Garden of Eden with no liberty, it's nothing but a desolate prison.
Brian Gale is our Elko County Commissioner, and I found a topic that you were excited to talk about. You were ready to go on that one. Thanks, Brian.
You bet.
So moving on, just looking at a couple of other bill draft request ideas. This one didn't have an explanation, but it would affect every property owner. Would it be a good idea to reset the depreciation on real property upon sale, or for some variation? Of course, the goal would be to capture more property tax. For example, if you live in a 100-year-old house in Elko, it is fully depreciated, and you pay basically the same tax, right? It's capped at that, 3%. Yeah. But if you sold that house to a new young couple and they started fixing it up, and the way the law is currently, they would continue to pay that depreciated tax. So there is a move in the state, in other places, to consider resetting the property tax so that when the property is sold, folks would pay the same property tax rate as those who are paying on newer homes.
Yes, and that makes good sense to me, because the value of a home, the value of a property, is dependent only on how much it sells for. So if I buy $1 million home, that home is, by definition, worth $1 million. And when I buy $1 million home, I'm prepared to pay taxes on $1 million home. So that makes real good sense to me.
So whether or not that one will come up, that's just on the list of possibilities for county commissioners to consider today. And then there's one that I don't understand. I read it several times. Increasing prevailing wage project cost before public works projects are subject to prevailing wage. And the goal would be to make facilities and roads projects more affordable, especially for smaller jurisdictions with fewer resources.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that means. My understanding of it's the Davis-Bacon Act that establishes prevailing wage, that here in Nevada they say prevailing wage is whatever you can get in downtown Las Vegas, which in our area, that's just not so. And so what does that do? That increases the price that any government entity has to pay for contractors, because the government entities have to pay the prevailing wage. It just doesn't seem fair or, set aside logical. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's forced a lot of communities, including Elko, to look at alternative relationships, with design, build, contractors, that kind of thing, nonprofits, pairing with them just to save money, just to get projects built.
Yeah,
so.
That, and, more restrictions on building is what we do not need.
And then the last on the list is a professional license reciprocity from other states. And that makes perfect sense, because how in the world would you get an electrician to drive from Elko to Jackpot to do something when you can get someone from Idaho to drive over? So that one is pretty self-explanatory. But there you go, a list of 9 considerations, at least Elko County Commissioners, and we appreciate the board making that transparent, so that way anyone listening or wants to go online, you can look these up, and if you want to chime in, you can do that.
Well, I would say please chime in. We really want to hear what your thoughts are on these BDRs or anything you can think of besides. It really makes a big difference if you'll just go ahead and drop us a line.
We've seen that in action, Brian. Brian Gale is our county commissioner in both municipal and county government. It's really helpful for people to get involved before rather than after the fact. It's really hard to go back and reverse or change or say, well, we didn't know you felt this way. Well, we didn't know you were doing this. That's why we do this radio show. So
yeah, right.
We're really trying to reach out and engage people in their local government. Also on the agenda today, Medicaid recipients need help in their transportation costs. So this is a contract to approve a renewal of an interlocal contract between the county and Nevada Health Authority. So this would cover emergency transportation services for Medicaid recipients.
Yeah, right. That seems like we've done it in the past. It'll continue on, and I don't think there's anything particularly troublesome about that. And
then next, this one is a sign of growth, and that is, of course, a road maintenance agreement with Orla Mining, because they're going to be busy digging up gold here. Now it's finally coming together.
Yeah.
And it's in Elko County. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't know what the timeline is, but they're certainly working in that direction. Yeah, this would be a road maintenance agreement between the county and Orla to maintain the county road that's from State Route 228 at Twin Bridges that turns to the county road known as 17B, Lucky Nugget, and another county road. And, well, there are just a lot of county roads that so to enhance that and probably build up those roads so that they can accommodate some major truck traffic. I'm sure that'll be, as you said, that's just the first step. Spring Creek Fire Station is still being remodeled. Fire stations are important to you too, because you have volunteers in your community. Yeah, we do. It looks like they need some contract work done. So I'm sure that'll probably just go through. That is a budgeted purchase approval on the agenda today. And then an approval, discussion and consideration of approval of the initial labor agreement between the county and International Union of Operating Engineers. This is for the communication center employees in particular. Yeah, it looks like we haven't had a contract with this group yet, and it looks like we got to have one. I think all the other major employees are represented in one way or another, except for appointed officials. Correct, right. Brian? Okay. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just a sign of the times, and that contract will come up.
Let's see here. We're just going to revisit maybe a couple things. Oh, I wanted to let you talk about the water issue. On a March 4th meeting, Brian, you brought up a concern about a South Fork water appropriation. I think you're closely following some of these water right issues in Nevada, and there was some 5,409 acre feet of water relinquished by the state lands in the South Fork area, but continued to be treated as appropriated. So you brought this to the county commission attention, right?
Yes. So what's happened is I had the date written down here, 88 or somewhere in the 1980s, the Nevada State Lands acquired the area that's now South Fork Reservoir. So they bought the ranch from the Tamara family, and they bought all the water rights. About approximately 5,000 acre feet annually of that water was surface water. That means ditches and such. And approximately 5,000, a little more, 5,000 acre feet annually was groundwater, or would need to be pumped. Well, they built the reservoir, they filled up the reservoir, and they never used any of that pumped water. Now, of course, one of the main concerns with water in Nevada is that if you're not using it, you lose it. And that encourages people to put the water to the best use possible. So for 30 years, or however long it's been, 35 years, that 5,500 acre feet annually of water was never used. And so as soon as Orla contacts them and says, hey, we'd like to use some of this, then Nevada State Lands goes to the state engineer and relinquishes it, which temporarily relinquishes it. You could never do that. I could never do that, but they can. And they got the state engineer to basically tie up those 5,500 acre feet annually in perpetuity so that nobody can use it. So that's the Dixie Creek 10-mile basin, which includes Spring Creek. So that basin looks like it's over appropriated on paper, but there's only like half of the water that's actually being used. And we have this enormous amount, 5,500 acre feet annual, that's now been tied up. So we don't think that's very fair. And so we made a resolution last, 2 weeks ago to petition the state engineer to undo that relinquishment, which means it's not tied up forever, and then to take away the water, to forfeit that water, which would make it available to Orla, for instance. It would make it available to anybody who wants to drill a well in the Dixie 10-mile basin. So it's a really big deal because, hey, this is Nevada. This is the driest state in the union. We don't think it's beneficial or intelligent at all to tie up our already extremely rare resource in a basin that is getting so much growth. And it's a big deal. You need water for life. We like life. More of it. More water for us.
Brian Gale is our county commissioner, and it is fascinating. It is important. I'm glad that you brought up the topic. You have to wonder, we had that sudden departure of the water engineer. It sounds like everything you're describing happened fairly recently.
I think the previous, I can't say exactly. I wasn't there. But it seems like this type of maneuvering is what expedited our previous water engineer's departure. Hopefully that means our new water engineer will undo this, which it's entirely at his discretion to undo. Hopefully he'll undo it and we can get that water back.
Well, we know our former representative, Pete Goycochea, worked very diligently on these issues, continued to right up until his forced retirement as a lawmaker because of term limits, and now he's doing a great job for us as a regent, certainly, but these are very significant issues, appropriation, over-appropriation, water and or septic, and as you said, it controls the very growth that some folks are really looking forward to and counting on. I wish I would have printed the article, Brian, but I was reading that over in Utah, they are using some technology, like some electromagnetic imaging, and they're flying over areas so that they can actually, for the first time, I read that they can start to measure some of the groundwater, because that's also a huge issue for us. We don't know what we've got or where it is.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that and see what it is. I know there are some technologies where individual contractors can locate where you should put your well. I mean, besides just witching, you get whatever it is, a willow limb.
I've done
or
that for
something
graves
like that.
with Jan Peterson. It works. It's kind of eerie.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay. Well,
Well, you know.
I don't know if it
Jan
works
Peterson and I had fun. That's all that mattered. Yes.
Well, anyways, there is technology now that'll help you locate your well and actually find water. But I am unfamiliar with what seems like you're talking about here. They're using in Utah. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I'll go back, dig out, hopefully find that article. I usually read KSL.com, or I'll go to even the Deseret News will pop up. Salt Lake Tribune also has a lot of environmental news and stories, and that's where we started our conversation, but we didn't have it on the air yet. I didn't want to veer too far off course, but you were excited about the news of the U.S. Forest Service headquarters being located out west, and this has been a long time in the making.
Yeah, we cherish Nevada. We think it's beautiful. And there's a lot of people who find it absolutely beautiful. We like the, wide open spaces. You climb up the mountain just a little bit and you can see for, it seems like 1,000 miles. There's no obstacle in your way. It's a different land than Washington, D.C., or wherever they had it before. It's good to have the people making decisions for this territory, in this territory. And plus, I mean, every time they go grocery shopping, they might run into someone who's irritated about their poor decisions, which I'm sure they're not going to get in Washington, D.C. if they're inside the Beltway.
And you can also run into someone in the grocery store. I mean, if they're buying beef, you can say, hey, why am I not able to buy this beef from Ruby Valley? Why do I have to get it from Argentina, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Country of origin labeling.
Yes.
We like that.
So we talked about a lot of different issues again today. The county commission meets at 1:30 this afternoon in the regular courthouse, or the annex meeting room, actually, there on Court Street. And you can watch online, elkocountynv.net. You can be there in person. I want to make sure we got to all of the topics that you were hoping to today, Brian. Brian Gale, our guest today. I know that during the recent meeting, the commissioners have looked at a community project funding priority list submitting to our outgoing congressman, the jail expansion, a public safety facility, garbage water plant. I mean, the county has a lot of needs, right, Brian?
Boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah, the county does have a lot of needs. And we haven't narrowed down on anything that we're really going to start pushing for. Mm-hmm. So for today's meeting, there's not a whole lot exciting or controversial. Along with the resolution we passed last time, there was the resolution about wolves.
Oh, please tell us about that.
Yeah,
yes, because that is your initiative. We'd
like to avoid establishing packs of wolves in Nevada. They have not there is some debate, but there's solid science that says wolf packs have never been historically in Nevada. So for the state, and this isn't happening right now, but if there were some movement in the future where somebody wanted to try to reintroduce or introduce wolves into Nevada, it would be precisely the same as introducing dingoes or cheetahs or any other obscure foreign predator in Nevada. We don't need it. We don't want it. Good science says that Nevada was relatively devoid of wildlife before ranchers came and started irrigating. The trappers who came here survived on eating beaver tail. I mean, they ate their mules and then they made it out on foot. I mean, it just was not very hospitable, and so there weren't big herds of elk and such that would feed packs of wolves. So yeah, I guess our intention now is to avoid, if at all possible, establishing. It's not up to question right now, but if the question were to arise, we want to establish the fact that we are not interested in having wolves recognized in the state of Nevada.
And did your fellow commissioners support you in seeking that resolution?
I got enough votes to make her pass.
All right, so there you go.
Yes, everybody on the commission is very conservative and very concerned with the welfare of the agriculture in this area, the hunting in this area. It's a pretty big deal. We get a lot of hunting here, and any other type of recreation, which we just don't need packs of wolves to get in our way.
And of course, there is that science that suggests that the wolves can and do, and in other places have followed the elk, as you mentioned, and maybe even moose, which we're starting to hear a lot more about moose sightings in Elko County.
Huh. That would be interesting to me. Moose, of course, are a different critter than elk. They don't hang out in giant herds. So I would think moose would be more of a prey to a bear or a mountain lion than it would be to wolves, because there just aren't enough of them anywhere.
Maybe that's why they like Elko County. Right, exactly. Yeah. So, well, we talked again about a lot of different things today, and I hope that you were able to use the time the way you were hoping to, Brian.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Lori.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the program. Elko County Commissioner Brian Gale headed to the Elko County Commission meeting that starts at 1:30. You can be there in person or watch online, elkocountynv.net. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today.